Once hailed as one of Europe's youngest countries, Turkey is now aging faster than many demographers had anticipated. Western Europe and parts of Asia were the first to age rapidly after witnessing a combination of lower birth rates and longer lifespans. That led to an older society where the portion of seniors grew faster than all other age groups. And now Turkey is starting to see that trend. Nearly 1 in 10 people in Turkey is over the age of 65, a 24% rise in the past 5 years. And future projections paint a similar picture. According to the Turkish Statistical Institute, 1 in 6 people will be a senior citizen by 2040. Following in the footsteps of other countries, Turkey's improvements in healthcare have raised living standards and expanded lifespans. But with that came decreases in fertility, standing at about 2 births per woman. So what challenges will an aging society present for Turkey and its economy? And to discuss the rise of the elderly population in Turkey, I'm joined by Aaron O'Neill. He is a researcher at Statista, a German-based company specializing in market and consumer data. And from Ankara, Ahmet Sinan Turkyilmaz. He is the head of the Department of Social Research Methodology at Hacettepe University. Gentlemen, welcome to Straight Talk. It's good to have you on the program. Ahmet, nearly 1 in 10 people in Turkey is over the age of 65. Once Europe's youngest country, Turkey is now joining fast to other developed countries where a large portion of the population is elderly. So the question is, has Turkey aged faster than expected, and what has contributed to that?
Yes, actually, I have to say that not only Turkey, but the whole world is aging in general. Population aging is a universal phenomenon. And nearly every country in the world is experiencing growth in both size and also the proportion of elderly. So in the world, it's estimated that almost 700 million people living over 65 and plus. And even in the next year, it will be doubled. So when we look at Turkey, actually, we are just in the edge of naming as an age country, which is 10%. But in terms of numbers, we have more than 8 million people aged 65 and over. So Turkey is aging, and we can name as an age country afterwards.
Yes.
And we are in the process of aging, and we are facing it.
So, Aaron, is Turkey, would you agree with Ahmet, is at risk of becoming old before it gets rich or more developed, let's say? And what can be done to prevent such a scenario where there aren't enough young people working to support the elderly population?
Well, I think if you look at Turkey's current state, if you think of it in terms of a population pyramid where young people make up the base of the pyramid, and then as each age group moves older, their share of the population is younger. Turkey's current population pyramid is more of a bell shape. So the older generations are growing and their share of the population is growing. As the birth rate falls, then the base of the pyramid narrows. And it's not going to be a problem, or the elderly won't become a burden on Turkish society unless the pyramid becomes inverted and you have more old people than young people and not enough people to care for them.
So, Ahmet, how has the COVID-19 pandemic impacted fertility rates around the world, and how has it psychologically and economically affected people? Millions of people, I think, we're talking about here.
Yeah, actually, there are some fertility societies who have announced that it is unlikely to affect fertility, but there is no denying current evidence. It's very limited. But I believe that COVID-19, first of all, one of the reasons that people kind of delaying their pregnancy. But on the other hand, according to the United Nations Population Funds, there are some studies showing that there are some decrease in the human fertility, given that we also need 9 months for the pregnancy, as you know. And there are some data from US and there are some data from European countries. We have seen some 3 to 7% decline in the fertility. So for Turkey, we already have declining fertility, but we don't have any data for that, unfortunately.
So, Aaron, what are the main factors behind a population aging? We know declining fertility rates, increased expectancy, but some put the blame on migration. Could you elaborate on this migration aspect, how it is impacting people's reproduction choices?
Migration trends don't seem to correlate with the fertility trends within a general population. It's only when we come to more developed societies that migration impacts demographics in a different way. So, for example, in Germany, migration has kept the population at a steady state of around 83 million people, even though Germany's birth rate has been below its death rate for over 50 years now, and the population is in a state of natural decline, but migration keeps it at a healthier level.
So is this the key? Because we know Germany is the country that contributed the most to the elderly population in Europe, but it is still one of the biggest economies in the continent. What's the key in here?
Well, for Germany, there are a few different factors. Mostly it's the strength of the welfare state. The German government has put measures in place for over 140 years that have allowed German society to benefit from a strong economy. So social security and universal health care, these infrastructures have been in place for such a long time that as the population aged, the elderly didn't become a burden on society. So the economic success of the country was put back into the people. And now, as we move forward, we have things like automation that are changing the employment sphere within Germany. So in the manufacturing industry,
Yes.
young people aren't moving into it as much as they used to. They're moving into different areas. And as people retire because of the aging population from manufacturing, they're replaced by robots, but in a more positive way than in other countries.
So, Ahmet, does a shrinking, let's say, workforce offer any opportunities so as to reorganize the working environment in a more efficient way? What are the opportunities?
Oh, it's a very challenging question because the improvement in the technology and the use of the robots and others. On the other hand, having a population with a longer span is kind of sometimes contradicting. But on the other hand, there might be some other opportunities. Let's say the people, even the elderly people, may work in a longer period. The retirement can be concluded, but it's very much depending on the level of the development of the country. So I cannot conclude the same for the whole countries. So it is really depending on the situation of and the economic level of the country.
So, Aaron, what should be done to counterbalance longer life expectancy and decreasing birth rates? Because we know some European countries have suffered from these low fertility rates and they have tried to boost them, but most cases seem to have been unsuccessful. Why is that?
Well, it depends which part of Europe we look at. If we look at Eastern Europe, their birth rates are in part affected by high levels of migration of the younger generations. So the generation who are most likely to have children, then move away. And then if we look at a country such as Germany, they're trying to fight against low fertility rates. They've introduced fairly generous childcare benefits. They've introduced longer paternity leave for parents, and they're introducing economic incentives for having children.
So, Ahmed, the middle of the 20th century was marked by a significant increase in fertility rates in many countries, but this trend ended also significantly during the 1960s and 1970s. What was the reason behind this? And can we now draw some parallels between those times and today? I mean, are circumstances similar again?
Yeah, actually, the main reason behind the increase in the mid-20th century is actually the war. We always observe a high fertility after divorce because after divorce, the countries are losing the productive wages and they need labor force. So that's why fertility increases. And we also observe those baby bombs. But it's at some point when the population become larger and larger, then the socioeconomic problems occur. So today, actually, I see that another parallel. It's kind of a continuum of fertility decline from the earlier decades, as you mentioned. And as Aaron told, the many European, especially the Eastern European countries, are facing very low fertility rate, and they cannot turn it back. There are some exceptions like Sweden and France, but even then, they can just increase the fertility rate to 2 children, which is called a replacement level, meaning that at a hypothetical level, the population, the country can keep its population stable, something like that. So it's kind of a continuum. It's not a repeating, I believe.
So, Aaron, when do you think the world see a baby boom again? Will it ever see it, or maybe after another major war?
I think with the improvements in women's rights and autonomy and birth control over the past century, really, it's less likely that a baby boom would happen on such a short term. But the UN prospects for the next 80 years show that the population of Europe, Asia's, and the Americas will all be in decline, and it's only Africa's population that will be growing by the end of the century.
Okay, all right, gentlemen, unfortunately, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for joining me on Straight Talk.